our family survived a murder. Yes, this is a tribute to my grandmother. This is a story about not just my family, but about, I think, the endurance and strength of human beings in general. And I think if you're going through a struggle, if you're going through something difficult, if you're going through something hard, I think the only way to get through it and come out of it a better, or I won't even say better, to get through it and come out the other side and do okay the rest of your life is to walk through it. Now, before I get started today, I just wanted to let you know that this is kind of a sensitive subject. I am going to be talking about a crime that happened to someone in our family. If it's something that you want to maybe pass on, I just want to let you know up front. It's really kind of a tribute to my grandmother, and I'm sharing this video today in hopes that it will not only pay tribute to her, but also just help people that might be having problems with grief, with negativity, with all those things that come to you when things happen that are out of your control. So this is our family story. So the reason I'm not saying it's just a story from my grandmother is because it was like a tidal wave when everything happened, and our family literally fell apart. We broke into pieces. I mean, like in pieces. So this is my grandma's story. She was involved in a home invasion that happened at her home. At the time, she was living with, well, my uncle was living with her son, and they had a group of, I believe it was 5 people, most of them youth under the age of 18, and there were, I think, an older person there who was kind of running the show. And they broke into her home looking for, an opportunity to rob. When they came to the door, they pretended they were selling magazines or needed help or something. And for some reason, my uncle opened the door to them, and one of them had an iron, and he hit him in the head, tied him up, and then started ransacking the house. So my grandmother at the time was, just severely arthritic. She had severe rheumatoid arthritis. She had braces on both of her legs. She had, a walker. She barely could get around. She was at the point very close probably to going into a nursing home. And she was in bed when this happened. So why they attacked her and did such a brutal crime, I mean, no one could really figure it out. I think part of it is she didn't have hardly any money. They had this little house in Long Beach, California. They didn't have a lot of money, and I think there was just no valuables in the house. No money, no valuables. So maybe it started off with them, trying to find the money or what have you. I don't know. But anyway, she was stabbed. They broke her neck. They beat her. It was a very brutal crime. And my grandmother died just a couple of days later. It was a very horrific thing to happen. So when I say our family survived it, literally it was every person in our family was just greatly affected. I mean, this was someone that we loved, that we, had known our whole life, and someone very dear to us. So to have something so brutal happen, it was really unbelievable. So what followed after that nightmare was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. My dad at the time, it was my paternal grandmother, and my dad at the time had been, living a life he really shouldn't have lived. He had been cheating on my mom for about a year, and he had, this woman on the side, and I think he used this as an opportunity to leave the family. I really do. And so we pretty much lost everything. And my poor mom, who had never worked a day in her life, all of a sudden is like, wow, I have kids in high school. I have no way of earning any money. My husband's gone with someone else, and this terrible, awful tragedy has happened. I think she was just a mess. And that mentally, it was so hard on her. She was so depressed for a couple of years. It was very difficult. It was very difficult. So during that time, my brother, myself, and my mom, we all were very close. My brother and I are still extremely close. And I think a lot of that, of course, we were close growing up, very close to my mom. And it was, I think sometimes when you go through tragedy or you go through really difficult things in your life, it can tear you apart, but it also can bring people closer together. And somehow, I don't know how, honestly, we managed to get through like the next 3 or 4 years after that event happened. And it was difficult. I mean, really financially, mentally, physically, everything you could imagine. It was just really difficult to survive that. I started having like really severe fear and anxiety, and I just couldn't control it. I was like not there when it happened, but I kept feeling like I was there, and your mind just runs away with you. And it was hard to sleep. It was hard to eat. It was hard to work. I mean, I tried going to college initially after that happened. My very first semester, another tragic event happened at the school, and I dropped out the first semester. Now, I did go back and eventually finish college, but those first few years were very difficult. So I want to talk a little bit about my grandmother and what her life was like, just to kind of bring it all together. So my grandmother, her parents were from Czechoslovakia. She met at the time, Czechoslovakia was a country. Now I believe it's the Czech Republic. But she met my grandfather, who at the time was from Austria-Hungary. Now I know everything's changed in that region, but that's what it was then. And so my grandmother was born in Czechoslovakia. My grandmother was born in Prague, Czechoslovakia. My grandfather was born in Austria-Hungary. They both actually came to the United States separately, but they settled in a town in Erie, Pennsylvania. It was a high population of, European descent, and they met, and they had twins that passed away when they were very young from the flu. They had 5 boys, and it was 5 boys. So I'm kind of confused, but so they had 5 boys, they had 2 girls that passed away. So my grandparents had a farm in Erie, Pennsylvania. Eventually my father moved out of the state, and they followed him and ended up in California, which is later on down the road how and where everything took place with the murder. And my grandmother, I can remember, a lot of the things that I've implemented in my life as far as the way that I eat and the type of food that I like, and, just these really strong memories I have are from my grandma. Her and my grandpa both were very difficult to understand. I mean, their first language was, Slovakian, and I believe that's what they called it when they talked. and their Bibles were in Slovak. Their talk amongst each other, they still kept their native language. They did learn English, but it was very broken. They were very hard to understand, and I never learned any of the language. They spoke English around us, but it was a lot of old foods, Russian foods, Czech foods, Austrian foods. That's what I remember every time I went to their home. And lots of pierogi and cabbage and stuffed cabbage rolls and all kinds of things like that. A lot of soups that she would make, homemade breads. They were delicious. She was a wonderful cook. I mean, one of those people who never owned a cookbook. Everything was just like a pinch of this and a pinch of that. All of a sudden, she had like this amazing meal. For me, I need a recipe book for everything. So anyway, she was a wonderful grandmother and did not deserve what happened to her. So when I talk about what happened afterwards, as far as us surviving, all of us surviving it, she did not survive the murder, of course, but all of us did survive. And as time went on, I was very naive when all of it happened, very immature, very naive. And this was a wake-up call because my whole life had kind of been overprotected from my mom. I was just kind of set on this path of how I was going to live my life and dreamy, all this. And I learned very young that life isn't like that oftentimes. Sometimes it is. Some people just luck out and everything's wonderful, hunky-dory, their whole life. And other people struggle, and they have struggles. They have physical struggles. They have mental struggles. They have emotional struggles. They have marital struggles. They have family struggles. I mean, health struggles. There's just, the list goes on and on and on. And each person in their life learns how to adapt to the world based on their own personal struggles. And for some people, it breaks them. It breaks them down. It destroys them. And for me, and I think my brother and my mom, I can speak mainly for myself, it didn't do that. I actually came out of it on the other end with a huge appreciation for my family, for my friends, for my life, for every day that I'm breathing on the earth. And I decided early on that I was not going to be a person that this turned into jello. I just refused. I thought, this was terrible. It was horrible. All the worst things happened from it. We lost our home. We lost our cars. We had no money. We were poor. It was just such a difficult time financially after that whole thing happened. But something got really strong inside of me. And I thought, even with as horrible as everything was, I got through this. I survived it. And yes, I do have things that come up, but I work extremely hard on finding my positive place, on surrounding myself with good people, with positive people, with people who care about me and people that I care about. I spend a lot of time and effort nurturing my relationships with my family and also friends. I just think that you have a choice in life, whatever your situation is. You can stay down or you can get up. And I chose to get up. I chose to be positive. I chose to really work on finding things that made me happy, that brought me joy. And here I am now, 65 years old, still, I think, finding joy. And it may be difficult in the beginning. It may really be difficult, but I think if you really work on it and you really put thought and prayer and whatever it is that you do that brings you to a better place, I think there's hope for everybody. So I hope you found this video helpful in some way. If not, maybe just something that you might take with you and think about, and who knows, maybe apply one positive thing about it to your life. That would make me happy. So thank you for watching today. I gave a lot of thought, and for several months I've been thinking about making this video. I wasn't quite sure until today that I was even going to make it, and I'm glad I did. I hope it was helpful. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. Give me a like or a thumbs up or ring the bell for future notifications. My channel, if you're not a current subscriber, is really about my life and how I live at homesteading, living off the land. I garden, I have fruit trees, I love to cook, I love to make jewelry, I love to spend time with my family. I just have a lot of interests, and I try to share a lot of those on my channel. So I hope if you're not a subscriber, you'll consider hitting that button and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as part of my family. So have a great day, everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.